Okay, great. Welcome to the Unscripted podcast with your hosts, Mikey and
Danny, hi.
I. So today we're basically going to talk about two important topics that we find to be pretty interesting, which is minimalism and geo-arbitrage.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, I guess first let's start off with the minimalism discussion. What are your general thoughts about minimalism and how has it, I guess, like been valuable in your life?
Yeah, and I have to say, I think this is a great sort of next step or extension of the conversations we've been having about like fire and like um, achieving financial independence, retiring early, and just,
Mhm.
how to get the sort of most, paradoxically, the most out of your life by, maybe focusing on the essentials. Um,
Mhm.
I think minimalism is something that I do value in my own life. It
Mhm.
it's yeah, and it encompasses like I guess different aspects of my life. I think maybe first and like the more sort of tangible side of things is kind of like you know how I live. Like I like to live more simply. Um, I maybe on like a smaller scale. I think it's just kind of always been like that. I think my family's always been like that as well. And
Mhm.
just kind of, keeping sort of, I guess, the cost of living lower than I guess is what's considered normal in the US.
Yeah,
And I think it's allowed
absolutely.
me to really focus efforts on, things that matter more to me as a result. But
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, on this topic of like, living more minimally and maybe from a cost of living perspective, living more frugally, perhaps. What are your thoughts on
Mhm. Yeah. Ooh, I think frugality is a double-edged sword because I think sometimes it can be difficult to draw the line between, I guess, responsibility as well as enjoyment. And sometimes the line between those two can sometimes be blurry, but I think a couple of principles that help me navigate it is, I guess, yeah, the 50, 30, 20 like budgeting framework where you like save and
that?
invest like 20% of your income and then 30% of it goes towards your wants and then 50% of it goes towards your fixed costs or your needs. I think that definitely helps me kind
Mhm.
of like think about, or I guess like how to practice frugality in the context of like spending. But at the same time, I think it can still be challenging because every situation is different from person to person. But yeah, for me, minimalism, I think I kind of lean more towards its cousin, like essentialism. I try
Mhm.
to keep whatever is essential, and I try to, I guess, get rid or at least pay as little attention to what doesn't bring me value in my life. So for instance, that would be, I guess, clothing. I most of the clothes that are in my closet are mostly hand-me-downs from like my father, and he doesn't wear most of it anyway. So it's like,
Mhm.
well, why not just so
Yeah.
yeah, most of my purchases doesn't actually like go towards spending on clothing because most of the clothes I already have and need are from pretty much hand-me-downs that also are pretty, I guess, like fashionable and sensible
Mm.
as well.
Yeah.
So I guess that's one way I think like I practice essentialism is by paying a lot more attention on what I already have instead of paying attention to what I don't have and then sorting through that. Because I think it's very easy to neglect all of the stuff that we've accumulated throughout, our lives and yeah, give too little attention to what we've accumulated and pay too much attention on what's the next thing I can buy. So this is, I guess, yeah, one of the reasons why I typically don't, I try not to, I guess, fall into like online shopping and just digital consumption in general.
Yeah.
And I just try to make the most of what already exists. And if I don't, then I will obviously have to purchase it. So yeah, that's kind
Yeah.
of my philosophy.
No, that these are some really good points. Yeah. I also find that just clutter just makes things really difficult like in terms of your day-to-day life. Like if there's too much stuff
Yes.
in my apartment, And as I'm saying this, I'm looking at my apartment right now. Maybe there is a little too much, at least for me. I
For
think
sure.
it takes a lot more effort and energy to kind of organize and keep things clean and neat. And, I like to keep things relatively clean and neat. And
Mhm.
yeah, I'd rather not be focusing a lot of my life force and my energy, my day-to-day time and effort trying to
Mhm.
organize and keep things neat and clean or and where they're supposed to be, as it were. So I think
For
a
sure.
good thing about, minimalism applied to like your material belongings and possessions and things like that. It just helps free up time to, allow you to do things that you are interested in, like making a podcast
Mhm.
or going for a run
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
focusing on your physical health and mental health. So
Absolutely. It
yeah.
is absolutely logical to, I guess, think about it as the less stuff you have, the less time you need to spend organizing it. I think that's right.
Yeah, for sure, for
So,
sure.
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. And I recently also did a bit of on the topic of clothing, I have to say, I recently also did a bit of a purge of sorts of my
Ooh.
wardrobe. Um, I might have told you this outside of our podcast, but I went on a business trip
Okay.
uh, semi recently. Well, I guess 2 years ago. So not
Mhm.
super recent.
Okay.
And I had this like terrible allergic reaction, and I suspected it was from the polyester bed sheets in my
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
my budget hotel
Mhm.
that my travel expense was able to accommodate at the time. Anyways, I dove into this rabbit hole of researching into clothing, and I learned that polyester is effectively plastic, and I mean,
Mhm.
I kind of knew that, but people do have sensitivities to the chemicals that are in polyester clothing, and so it's kind of prompted me
Mhm.
to more recently do a bit of a reorganization, a reprioritization of my closet. And it was a good opportunity to find things that I just
Yeah.
haven't worn and or just I've realized not super healthy for my body and my skin. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's something to also consider as well, being more intentional.
Absolutely.
That exercise was great. It was about kind of being intentional, like understanding what, items of clothing I really wanted, needed versus
Mhm.
just stuff that I've just been blindly accumulating over the past 3 decades of my life. So yeah, a good
Absolutely.
exercise.
Yeah, yeah. And I also think that something interesting that I've started paying attention to is like rates, like different rates of accumulation. So
Yeah.
it's like obviously you can donate stuff like every so often, but if you're buying more stuff than you are donating, like of course over time it's going to accumulate. Like, and that principle applies like not just like for clothing, but also for
Mhm.
anything else that you accumulate, such as assets and like your money and also like furniture and anything. It's the rate at which you bring stuff in and the rate at which like stuff leaves you. And if there's like a spread between those two, that ultimately determines, I guess, the future trajectory of how much stuff or money or I guess resources you'll eventually accumulate. So it's a really interesting, I think, principle.
Yeah.
Yeah, in general. So
I think there's something in there about the need to recalibrate and maybe the need
mhm.
to be comfortable with letting go of certain
Yeah,
things. Yeah, I think
absolutely.
a lot of times we attach a lot of emotional, sentimental value to physical objects, and and that's fair for some items, but at some
Yeah.
point, there needs to be more of a decision being made on like what is valuable to me, what is really worthwhile,
Mhm.
and is it an emotion or a feeling or something maybe intangible that, I can sustain within myself instead of needing, kind of material objects to kind of help sustain that. So,
Yeah,
yeah, something
absolutely.
kind of spiritual in that, I think, maybe.
Yeah, I think right, like accumulation of stuff, I think also implies that you're forming an attachment to different things, like whether subconsciously, intentionally, or unintentionally. But whenever
Mhm.
you bring stuff like into, I guess, your own ownership, you kind of develop some sort of an attachment. And that also implies that you also have to let it go at some point in time. If, for example, if you want to just, I guess, clear clutter, but this also applies on a more spiritual level, like letting go of, I guess, photos or memories of things that you once cherished in the past but no longer bring you value in the present or potentially like in the future. So I think that's also
Yeah.
something that about minimalism that I've kind of been trying to be more intentional about is digital clutter. With the
Mm.
amount of photos that I have, I find it very easy to, I think, like take a lot of pictures of things to kind of, yeah, like cherish and hold on to them. But at the same time, it's
Yeah.
like I only have so much iCloud storage.
Oh gosh,
So,
that is so true.
so
Yeah. I mean,
um,
honestly, I just keep my photos in my iPhone and,
yeah,
if
yeah.
it's too much, then, they're gone. They're gone, they're
Yeah,
gone. Yeah.
they're gone, they're gone. That's true.
But I do feel that emotional I don't
Yeah,
want to lose them, but yeah, I
yeah.
mean, what's going on with storage these days? Gosh, I thought it would be
Right.
increasing at an exponential rate. I was like, why is it still so expensive to get that 2 terabyte
Yeah,
iPhone?
right.
I think was it 2000, the new iPhone 17, by the way. That's really exciting. It's coming out soon.
Yeah, yeah. And
I
also
really
the
want
iPhone
I really
Air
want it,
have,
but
have
I don't know.
been,
Maybe it's not the most
yeah,
wisest fire decision.
probably not. But yeah, yeah, I think minimalism definitely has a lot of value, in our lives. And I also
For
think
sure.
that its counterpart, essentialism, also has a lot of benefits as well.
For sure.
And yeah, I think,
Yes. Yeah,
yeah,
and you can apply it to, more than just kind of objects as well. We talked about applying it to kind of personal finance.
Mhm,
How that I think it all ties in together. Yeah, and then sort of I think, other aspects of life too, kind of your spiritual values, attachment to
mhm.
things.
Yeah,
A lot of Buddhist elements in there, I guess.
definitely.
Yeah, yeah, learning to
Yeah,
detach,
yeah,
live
yeah.
with the essentials,
Hmm.
focusing on kind of well, understanding that, it's all like things and even memories and values change over time and, we're ever changing. And
Hmm.
um, so, learning to live with that and be comfortable with that, I think is key.
Hmm.
Sometimes that means letting go of things and
Hmm.
accepting change and maybe laying the path so that, you aren't so required to be so rigid
Hmm.
in the way that you live and can
For
allow for
sure.
change to happen um, in a not super painful way. Um,
Definitely.
okay, we're
Yeah.
at the halfway mark, but I really do
Yeah.
want to talk about
Hmm.
uh, is
Geo
geo
arbitrage.
arbitrage the right term for it? I feel is that the
Yeah, I guess like it encompasses a lot of different, I guess, like
hmm,
concepts and ideals as well as
yes.
like pr financial principles. I think the most basic is like if you just buy something in another country that has a weaker currency, you're basically participating in geo arbitrage because you have more purchasing power. But it
Hmm,
doesn't simply extend to consumer goods, it also extends to, I guess, like your lifestyle as well.
hmm,
And I think we know that around the world, cost of living varies greatly, depending on where you live. And I think a lot of us, I guess, on this journey to become financially independent, kind of place too much of an emphasis on, I guess, or I guess we never really think too much about retiring in a different country or spending, I guess, more time outside of the US. I think we mostly
hmm,
focus on, oh, how much do I need to accumulate in order to retire in the US or like in the city that I ideally want to live in without considering, I guess, like alternatives. But what I do think is interesting is that, for example, if you live in Tokyo, the cost of living is half of what it is in New York City. So between a half to a third, depending on how smart you are with budgeting and saving. And because of that, you can retire with pretty much half the amount of assets that you would need to live comfortably in New York City than you would in Tokyo. So you know how there's like
yeah.
barista fire and there's also like fat fire and there's just like comfort just like being able to retire comfortably. So I pretty much put up, I guess, a table of, I guess, a list of monthly expenses from city to city. I just sampled a couple, to kind of give you a sense of what, you know, like your monthly expenses might look like and how much. you would have to accumulate depending on the city you live
Mhm.
in order to retire there, or at least be able to spend a good chunk of your life there and not have to worry about, I guess, like money. Um, so I think some of these numbers are pretty interesting.
And before
Uh,
you share that, I just want to say this is wild,
yeah.
by the way, that to me, I mean, to me, this
Yeah.
how you know the this whole situation, like, well, first of all, it's very interesting that,
Mhm.
costs are so different across countries. I mean,
Yes.
that's a
Yes.
really interesting thing to call out. I mean, of course, we know that there's, exchange rate,
Mhm.
differences between countries and value currency in one country is different from another. But fundamentally, the core value of, serve goods and services, I mean, and arguably in Japan, I mean, there
Mhm.
shouldn't be any significant difference in the US. It's a developed country.
No.
I mean, it's fundamentally kind of very similar from an economic standpoint, but yet the costs
Yeah.
are so much lower than in the US. That's wild to me. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
always wonder kind of how does that square? Why hasn't
Mhm.
this sort of balanced out? But I guess there's some kind of political
Mhm.
economic policies at play that are kind of, you know, promulgating or that have continued to perpetuate this kind of system, which is interesting. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's also, and I have to say as well, I mean, it's interesting that not more people are doing this, are taking advantage
Mhm.
of these cost differences. But certainly, of course, I mean, there's people have responsibilities and they have family obligations and things like that, which
Definitely.
probably explains why these opportunities still exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's great. I think for people maybe like ourselves who aren't married or like have like a lot of obligations to consider.
Mhm.
If we have the option or if we have like remote jobs that allow us to travel to
Yeah.
go and live in different countries. I think not only is it good from a financial perspective, but I think it's also great for like just expanding your mind and
Yeah.
learning about other cultures and just kind of developing in that sort of realm of personal growth. So, anyways,
Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, on your point about why I guess the cost of living like varies so differently from city to city, definitely I think geopolitics has a big, I guess, like influence over the different costs. But I also think
Mhm.
that, it also depends on the zeitgeist and the era that we are existing in. Obviously, there's no guarantee that any of these
Mhm.
numbers are going to stay the same in the future. We could definitely see a case where the US like currency devalues relative to other currencies as well. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of different risks that are involved when deciding to pursue, I guess, geo arbitrage, depending on how your home country's currency is valued against other currencies. But given the conditions that we are existing in right now, you can exploit these differences and make the most out of it. So
Mm.
I'm just going to give a rundown of like different monthly living costs that,
Yeah.
in different cities. So, for example, if you live in Hanoi, like Vietnam or Chengdu in China, you can get by with decently comfortably with about $850 a month, and that includes rent and food and healthcare and insurance and savings. In Ho Chi Minh City, it's about like $1,000 a month, and that also applies to Lisbon in Portugal and Lima, Peru. And then per month in Bangkok, it's about $1,300 a month. In Tokyo, it's about $1,700 a month. Barcelona is about the same as Tokyo. In Seoul, $2,000 a month will help you get by. In Paris, it's about $2,300 a month. In New York City, Zurich, Boston, you're looking about $4,000 to $5,000 a month if you just want to, I guess, like be comfortable or not comfortable, but at least you can like sustain yourself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so
Sounds
the
about right.
numbers,
Yeah, no, for
right?
sure. Yeah, I live in New York,
Yeah, so
and so
mhm.
it's yeah, no, it's very expensive compared to other
Yeah,
cities. Yeah.
yeah. Mhm. And I live in Providence right now, so it's about, yeah, I think cost of living is about, I think $3,000 a month will get you by, but like somewhat comfortably. But
Mm.
yeah, so this is kind of what we coin like barista fire, which means like you can, definitely survive without working, but it's like, it'd be nice to have additional income to be able to afford other, I guess, like consumption and
Yes.
expenditure. So, for instance, like working a part-time job at a cafe, that's kind of why it's called barista fire. So the numbers here
Yeah.
say that if you want to live in, for instance, Chengdu in China or like Hanoi in Vietnam, if you accumulate at least, I think, $250,000 in assets as of 2025 dollars, you can pretty much live comfortably, or somewhat comfortably, while still being able contribute to society and work a part-time job and still live a meaningful life in
Yeah.
Lisbon. Yeah.
So wait, so 250,000. So that's
Mhm.
assuming
Yeah,
well, I mean these are, assumptions.
assumption, right.
So 250,000. So assuming the 4% rule applies, assuming, S&P goes
Yeah.
up, 8% per perpetuity,
Hmm.
inflation's around
Yeah.
3%. 4%, you take out
Mhm.
4%. So that's wow, that's 10,000 a year. Um,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's pretty interesting. Could I just
pretty
ask?
lean.
Yeah, and I
Yes.
have to say, of the two of us, Mikey is definitely the one that's traveled the most. I'm kind of a bit of a homebody. I kind of, I just have a lot of like stuff in my life that requires me to kind of stay put
Hmm.
where I am. So, Mikey, how many of these places have you been to?
I've been to pretty much, I don't want to say all of these places, but I want to say
Yeah.
80% of the places. So
Wow.
I've definitely experienced, I guess, like the variety of different spreads that
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
expenditure that you get to experience in all these different cities. So
Yeah, I mean, and
yeah.
honestly, like I've wanted to visit Southeast Asia for so long, just because I love the food there. I think it's like Southeast
Yeah.
Asian food
Yeah.
is so good.
Yes.
Yeah, just to be able to live there for, I mean, and I mean, I've seen videos as well. I mean, you're not living in like a, like a hostel with like 50 other people
No.
and it's like nice apartments. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like there's some places I think in Vietnam where you can live in like luxury apartments for I think maybe like two, 300, maybe like on the upper end, like maybe like $500 a month, but it will get you
Mm.
like a pretty comfortable apartment. Um,
Yeah.
in Lisbon, you can, or in Lisbon or Lima, Peru, or Ho Chi Minh City, you're probably looking more at $300,000 of accumulated assets before you can kind of like barista fire or just retire on just bare necessities.
Mm.
In Bangkok, it's about like $400,000. In Tokyo, you're looking more at, or Tokyo or Barcelona, maybe like $500,000. Again, these are rough estimates and assumptions based on the 4%
Yeah. Some
rule and
friends,
the
yeah,
way
they may
that,
not.
yeah, yeah.
True.
Unless capitalism is restructured radically, like this still would apply. But yeah, unless there's exogenous shocks to the system,
There's other
this no
considerations for
longer holds.
sure.
But
And yeah, I mean, we're all
definitely.
different in the way that, our
Hmm.
expenditures can evolve. So yeah, just keep that in
Yeah,
mind.
for
But
sure.
that is interesting. I'm
Right?
honestly so curious, and I wish there was there needs to be
Yeah.
a reality show of some sort where just they show people like living on, whatever portfolio
Yeah,
sizes, is appropriate for their just to show like a
definitely.
fire reality show. I mean I want to pitch that and just see how that goes. But yeah, I mean
That would be
that's
fascinating.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Because based on these assumptions, you basically are living the same quality of life. So for instance, like in New York City or Boston, you need about like $1.5 million in investable assets to live the same quality of life as you would in Vietnam for, I guess, like, I don't know, 250,000, which is
So
crazy.
strange how that works.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's
right?
interesting. Really
But
interesting.
obviously, money is just one aspect of the big picture. There's also people that you're surrounded by, and how are you building community in those areas, and how are you
Yeah.
staying connected with other people around the world. So, these are
Mm.
just bare financial considerations, but it's like, if you're able to make a lot of friends in, a variety of different countries, yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't see this as,
Yeah.
you know, an unrealistic way to live.
Gosh,
Um,
10,000 a year, just that is like, I mean, in the US
yeah.
that's really unthinkable.
Yeah.
I mean, how you? I mean, you definitely can't live in the
Yeah.
U.S. or well, I mean, I guess you can, but I mean, you'd be homeless. So
It's
that's
not
it's
ideal.
not ideal.
That's,
Yeah,
that is for sure.
yeah.
In Seoul, South Korea, you're looking at about $600,000 of assets. In Paris, you're looking at about 700,000. So, yeah, if you want to
Really,
live,
Paris,
I guess, more.
700,000. That's not bad for. I mean,
Yeah,
because I
it's
always
it's
think of Paris
about
as like same as New York.
yeah, except I think like because of I don't know exactly why, but I think like good social safety nets as well as like lower costs of I think consumables such as like food and everything else. It eventually like it balances out, and also I think real estate is nowhere as crazy as it is in New York City, and
Interesting.
yeah, basically purely based off of a cost of living like standpoint.
Mhm.
But yeah, if you want to, I guess, be fully comfortable retiring without having to work part-time and just be able to live entirely off of your assets, you basically just double that number. Um,
Mm.
so instead of 250,000, it's 500,000 for, I guess, like Chengdu, Chiang Mai, Hanoi. Um, Basically, you get twice, so
Yeah.
you're living on 20,000 a year instead of just 10,000, and that changes like I don't know, your standard of living completely. But
Mm.
again, like the more you accumulate, there's obviously diminishing marginal returns. But yeah, geo arbitrage, just like
Yeah.
some figures to consider when you're thinking about traveling to other countries and potentially staying
Sure.
there for longer than you would expect. This even works, just like living there short term, like 3 months. You save money by living in a different area, in a
Yeah.
different country, and you also get to explore as well. Isn't that crazy?
And yeah, and I'm
So,
glad that there's more and more, jobs that are becoming available that allow you to be kind of a global digital nomad. I think
mhm,
that's maybe the trend has kind of plateaued recently, more recently, what with the challenges in hiring this economy right now. But
yeah,
hopefully that continues. I mean, I don't understand why can't people be just as productive working in different countries and different time zones. I mean,
yeah,
with the
yeah,
technology that we have and how you can structure and organize work these days, especially working in
for sure.
tech. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, that's something definitely for, I guess, all of us to consider. Um,
Definitely. Yeah.
and I would say do it when you're young, don't wait until you're older and it's harder to travel and maybe you have some health, challenges and issues to contend with.
Yeah,
It's definitely
definitely.
good to and maybe this is a do as I say, not as I do, because but my job is it's not quite digitally nomadic just yet. So
Hmm. Yeah,
um, okay, great.
but great.
We're almost
Yeah,
at our half hour. Do you think this is a good time to wrap it up, Mikey?
definitely.
Okay.
So I guess like I hope you guys learned something interesting about minimalism and also geo arbitrage. Definitely, if you have
Yeah,
comments,
I feel like all of our topics, it just circles around this idea of like financial independence, fire, which I think, I
yeah.
mean, that's, I think living well, it really, it's kind of a key part of it. How do you be financially
Mhm.
responsible? How do you be able to, carve out the life that you want? Um, yeah, and be able to, live comfortably and,
Mhm.
get the most out of your experience. So
For
yeah,
sure.
more fire topics to come.
Definitely. And more about lifestyle and
Yeah,
also
and
about
Mikey, I'd love to hear
relationships and
more about
family.
your travel experiences. Just
Definitely.
it'd be interesting to hear about that,
Yeah.
what it's like to visit all these
Yeah.
different countries.
I would say it's definitely easier to do all of this when you have less obligations, which
Yeah.
definitely comes at a time when you're younger and also your very specific situation. So I was
Mhm.
lucky enough to be able to do all of this, even though I've definitely taken a break from traveling and I found a lot more
Mhm.
value, I guess, like staying, I guess, where I grew up. So I think,
Yeah. I
we
mean,
all
being
deserve
close to
to
parents
recharge our
is, especially as they're getting older, I found for me is just really important. Just,
definitely.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
important to cherish the time you have with them and support them where
Hmm.
you can. So,
Absolutely. All
anyways,
right.
all right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone. Please leave a comment if you have any questions. Let us know what topics you'd like to hear us speak about in our subsequent episodes. And
Hmm.
please subscribe.
Yeah. All right. I
Okay.
hope you guys enjoyed this episode and thank you for listening. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Bye.